We're back, and we're talking about the mental health issues that a lot of kids are dealing with all across the country, maybe all across the world, as a matter of fact. How are you doing, Isaac?
I think that the quarantine and the pandemic hit students really quickly, which it was very shocking. Like, one day I was at school, it was normal, and then the next day, like, there were some people wearing masks, already. So I think it came really quick and as a shock.
For all of us, even for adults, but I know for you kids it was really different because you were used to going to school every day. Evelyn, how are you now? Everything better?
I mean, yeah, I think that there's still some lasting, lingering effects from the pandemic, and a lot of kids are like, figuring out how to deal with that. But I also think, life's still like getting back to normal, and can still be really stressful and like.
Well, that's what life is like. But I know for you guys who have had to go through this, and it was really, really crazy experience, wasn't it? Just suddenly be watching your teacher talk. Is that how it was for you, Jayla?
Yeah, it was.
On TV or on your computer?
It was a very, very sudden. It was, one day you're at school, you're hearing like, oh, in some other countries there's something that's called COVID, and then the next day you're not in school anymore. Yeah, and then the next day you're not in school anymore because this virus has essentially taken over, and it's not really safe to be around the other people that you normally socialize with. And so I think a lot of people, myself included, ended up having some sort of effect with like social anxiety and not be able to, get in touch with a therapist right away and be able to deal with that and have coping skills to be able to go back when things got normal to be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
What did the anxiety feel like? Anybody able to describe it?
The pandemic really, it changed all of us and like the way that we deal with anxiety, and I think it brought a lot to a lot of people. For me, like, it's just with social anxiety has come up a lot, and with meeting new people, it's a lot harder now. Like those years that you were like at home when you didn't get to have those connections, like when you go to a classroom, you go to a new school, you didn't get to make those friendships or connections, and so it's really tough now, and I think it's made it a lot harder to like kind of relearn how to do that and how to interact with people like that.
I think it was also really hard, like for people with younger siblings. I have a little brother, and watching him at a young age go through that, and then trying to move back into being in bigger groups, he had so much anxiety about that. And I think watching that happen kind of made me sad, because I was like, he should not be having to have this level of anxiety and stress about just being at a gathering and having fun, like.
How about for you? Did you have any problems readjusting?
So. I think it was just more like I had so much that happened in my life from beginning of COVID to then end of it that I was just trying to find myself and redefine like what I wanted to do.
Do you feel that most kids have gotten comfortable now being back in school, being back with old friends?
I think it depends. Like I think we're getting there for sure, but I think there's still a few people who are still struggling with it.
Yeah, it's going to take a while to fully recover.
I feel as if it's like a 50-50. There are a lot of positive and in-person school, and there's a lot of positive in online school.
Yeah, for sure.
Were you all able to find your friends again, or did you stay in touch with them during the pandemic?
It was hard. Some friends like probably didn't even have a phone. Like some friends still didn't have phones. Maybe just didn't have their number and didn't have no way to contact them, so you lost the touch over 2 years. I remember I seen a girl that I went to school with my 8th grade year, and me and her walked past each other. My mom was like, "Don't you know her?" I said, "Mom, it's been like a year and a half since we've been in school." I said, "We talked at school, but it's like now we haven't seen each other in a year. We've lost that connection."
What do you guys worry about now? What are you worried about? We understand that kids your age
Future.
are worried.
Life. A lot of kids are worried about the future. I think that's like a big thing people worry about, and just like how it's going to turn out and how you can prepare for it.
If you're in like a dark moment, the thing that, like not a dark moment, but like a tough time, I feel like the best thing to do, something that's helped me, is think ahead of that.
That's
like
true.
nothing is like nothing is gonna last forever.
For sure.
If you're-
Yeah.
I think the most important thing with mental health is finding your coping skills.
Yeah.
Ways that you can pull yourself out of it, because it's so easy to just accept your mental health, whether that's anxiety or depression. It's so easy to just kind of enable it and let it happen. I think the biggest advice I could give to someone who struggles with mental illness is find what gives you purpose and find what helps you cope. For me, that's music. I think everyone just needs an outlet to cope.
So, Evelyn, do you have any advice or coping skills for someone who may be listening who is experiencing depression or maybe worried?
I mean, like, find your people. And whether that's, like, for me, for a long time, I had my friends, but then I also had, like, you know, my books. And, like, honestly, that was, like, a big part of, like, who I was, like, my fictional people. Like, you know, my friends that I could go home and, like, read them do the same things over and over again. It was predictable. It was easy. Like, I didn't have to worry about it. Like,
And were you as into books before COVID as you are now?
I'd say yeah, but also, you know, a lot of free times on my hand in the pandemic, and it was like a big, like, coping, like, outlet for me. And I'd have to say, like, a lot of my friends during the pandemic, or a lot of, like, the people that I would spend the most time with were fictional or on a screen or, you know, on YouTube, on social media. Like, the people that I would just, like, sort of idealize and, you know, sort of be like that's like my perfect friend or whatever, like, you know.
The character in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know it can be
know how
tough at
that is.
times.
I've been that way. Let me ask you, Isaac, do you have any advice for people who may be feeling down right now?
Probably asking for help. I get that it can be really stressful trying to think about, like, who can I trust? Like, who do I know is gonna help me and keep my secret, you know? So I think finding people to talk to, like a really good friend or parents, but sometimes people don't have those. So there's being able to trust people, to be able to communicate the way that you feel, because the feelings were a big thing for us for COVID, mental health. So it's important.
Loneliness is a big
sure you
thing.
don't
Loneliness. Did you want to say something about that?
Oh, yeah, I recently moved here from Florida. I made a joke about this, I'm not bringing this up, but like a year ago. So I lived in Florida almost a year ago, yeah. And I had a really close group of friends, I was really lucky to have, because we just got out of COVID, but I had a pretty good group of friends. And when I moved, I kind of just lost that. And it was hard, because, I mean, even now, it still feels like I'm alone sometimes, but I just surround myself with work, you know, school, and acting and stuff like that, just stuff that I like doing, and it makes it a little better. But I guess what really just I worry about a lot is whether or not I'm either setting my expectations too low or too high, just like in general of like everything.
Do any of you feel comfortable talking to your parents or not really?
I'd say yeah, I do. But I also think that, like, sometimes you need an extra point of view that is sort of removed from the situation.
Yeah.
Like, and that could be a therapist, or, you know, a friend that lives out of town, someone that you can just sort of like talk to without having their own like, you know, my parents know most of my friends, and they know, like, the people I'd be like ranting about or whatever. And so I do feel like I could talk to them, but also, you know, I feel like it's also easier to just sort of rant about someone that, like, you know, to someone who doesn't know them and, you know, can just sort of like agree with me. And
Multiple sources.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But do you think most of your parents get you? Are you worried about them listening to what you're saying right now? But do they understand you?
I feel like they do, but also they kind of don't. Like, they know you, because obviously you're their kid and stuff. Like, they've raised you, they know you. But also, like, there's some times where you're like, what are you talking about, Mom? Like,
You think they grew up in another era?
Yeah.
They don't know what it's
Yeah.
like? They don't know what you guys have been through?
yeah.
Now, we talked about the pandemic and like just anxiety. People are still finding out, or still trying to figure out like your after, like how you came out of it, how you're feeling after it. And I feel like COVID affected everybody in ways, and that's what I was getting at. People still have to figure out how it affected them. Not everybody has figured that out yet.
Because you know it affected your parents too,
Right.
Yeah,
one way
no, it
or
affected
another.
everybody.
But your parents care about you, they worry about you, and if you seem to be doing okay, they think you are.
I think people expect when they hear depression or anxiety that it's just like the extreme, and it's a spectrum. All mental health is a
definitely.
spectrum, and I think like teen depression versus adult depression is very different. And I think parents will look at adult depression symptoms in a child and they're like, that's not what you're experiencing, you're a child, and it's,
They make excuses.
Yeah.
And you think they may not really see what's really happening with you.
Exactly, yeah.
And sometimes it's like a lot of parents, I'm not speaking of my parents, yeah, shut up mom and dad, but sometimes like, you know, parents, they will go through like depression or something, but they grew up in a time where like, you know, it wasn't talked about, or it was like, you know, buffoonery. So like,
I
like that word.
Yeah, putting on that happy face is I will say easy for me. What I would the advice I would give to somebody is don't be scared to find your friends, because what helps me is the days I feel like I'm gonna go to school and not talk to anybody, I have friends just like me who want to be like, who want to make people laugh.
Yeah,
So
I know,
like,
I know the
you
feeling.
go to school and you're like, I'm not gonna say anything, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do that, but you have your friends around you.
And they're like, cool, me too.
Right.
And a lot of you, I'm sure,
your dogs,
tell your friends things that you wouldn't necessarily share with your parents.
Yeah.
Right.
But remember, your parents love you. They want you to be the best that you can be, and they want you to be happy. And we are so glad that we had such a great panel today. I've learned a lot from you, and I'm so happy that you all said yes to coming to Kids Speak Out.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Our panel has given us some really good insights into the mental health struggles that many say kids are dealing with these days, and they had some good suggestions for helping, coping. But if you need more information, need to know how to get help, check out our website, kidsspeakoutoregon.me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time on Kids Speak Out Oregon, conversations with Oregonians who have actually experienced homelessness.